If you're anything like me, you probably haven't really understood how closures work in JavaScript. But don't worry, because in this video you're going to learn what are closures, how to create them, where you should want to use them, and some real-world applications, so you can already start applying closures in your own projects. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. A closure essentially creates a private scope, allowing a function to preserve the outer variables and parameters, the values from them, basically allowing to have private variables inside functions. As an example, this counter here, which is a closure that has a variable and returns a function, and this function returning goes to the increment. So if we come to the browser, increment and execute with the parentheses, not only calling but executing. In this way we got the 1, the 2, the 3, and then it just keeps incrementing. There are no restrictions nor conditions, so it just keeps incrementing. This is basically what this closure is doing. Now, if you want to create your own custom closures, here are some steps you should follow. Firstly, create an outer function. Inside of it, create a variable, create a function inside of the outer function, the parent one. Make sure the two functions work with each other, are related somehow. Return the inner function, the one you just created, inside of the parent, yeah. Create a variable outside of those functions, really outside, probably in the global scope, and then give the value of that variable the return value of the parent function. It can be a little bit confusing, but let's understand it now. In here, uncommented, don't look at this now, it's for later. We have here two buttons, the like and the dislike. The like likes, the dislike dislikes. Have here a look of the like and dislike buttons. There we go. And again, we want to make a counter, so let's just make it. The IDs are like and dislike, so we just need to get the const like button like, and we also have the dislike button. Now every time we like, we want to show something incremented, so let's just make it like button dot add event listener. On click we want to console.log the likes incremented, and this way it should be already working. We are already incrementing the likes. If I come here and just search for likes, I receive the variable. Because it's in the global scope, it's not protected, it's really free for all. And with the new policies of YouTube, we can't really check the dislikes of a video anymore. So let's make a closure to work with the dislikes. Now the function should have a name, the outer function, you know, because the first step is creating an outer function. You can do it ambiguous or specific. I'm going to do it more ambiguous because this way I can use it for the likes as well if I want to. So I'm going to put click counter, something like this. And inside this function I'm going to create at least one variable. So let's create let clicks equals to 0, because it always starts as 0. Or it should, in this case. You could send as parameter something, but I want to keep this really simple for you to understand the closures. Then the next step is creating a function. This function is going to simply increment a click, and this function is going to also receive something. Let me think. Right guys, you just need to return or console log, it's safer, console log, the number of clicks incremented. It resembles something, doesn't it? Now we need to make sure that those two functions work together. Yes, increment clicks increments the variables that are here, so it all makes sense together. So we just need to return now the child function, the increment click. You don't return the execution of it, no. You return just the name. And now the last thing, the last two steps, is creating a variable const dislikes is equals to what? To the click counter returning value. Now, the only thing I need to do is using this function in the event listener of the dislike. So every time I click on it, on a dislike, I want to call this function dislikes or dislike. It makes more sense if it is dislike. So every time I click in it, I'm disliking this content, this type of video. And if I want to make the same thing for the likes, I can do it really fast. Because here down here, I can simply create const like equals to click counter. And one really nice and interesting thing about closures is that they are really similar to objects and classes. Because a closure, this is like a class, and this little body here, it's like an object, an instance, because the like and the dislike are going to be completely different. Like, so if I try to click dislike, we are disliking it, we are already in the 5 dislikes, but if I like, it starts again from the 0. But these ones, which was in the 5, it's going to come here as 6 again. See? Because they are 2 different things. They use the same model, but they are 2 different instances. In this way, guys, you can avoid the use of global variables and keeping your data safe, even though you don't need to keep it safe, but it's always good to know how to protect your information. When working with closures, it's important to have a solid understanding of how blocks and scopes work in JavaScript. If you don't, you might find yourself struggling to understand the difference because for you it's all the same, and keep sending code to ChatGPT asking, ChatGPT, why is my code not working? I can see your code, you need to send it, but you just sent it the previous message, you know, that all stuff, and it's going to be pretty annoying. If you understand this concept of scopes and blocks, you're going to make your life 100% easier. Trust me. In JavaScript, there are 3 types of variables: the var, let, and const. I already have here the comments. If you want, you can print it out or just copy for yourself. But it's pretty simple to understand. Vars, function scope. So, it doesn't matter if it was created inside a scope, inside a block, inside an if, inside a loop, it can be accessed anywhere. Vars, inside of this function, it can access anywhere. Let and const are block. If they are created inside an if, they cannot really be accessed outside of the if. It's undefined. And I can show you this piece of code. Let me check if it is executing. It is not because I was not calling the function. Undefined, yes, it's because let is not defined. It's because of this one. In this case it never happens because, well, you know, it is never equals. But now if I put the same thing, you can see that we got 0, 0, 0 and this 0 here, and then 2 undefined because it is not really defined. Meanwhile, this example can also be good for you because you can create a let or a const. You can't really change the const, but the let, you can create a let outside. So it sort of becomes function scope because it's in the top of the function. It doesn't need to be on the top, but in the really function scope, it's not inside of a block. You can use it inside blocks, and you can again use it outside of the blocks. So this way you can understand that if you really want to use a let function or a const function, you can use it on top and then access it inside of blocks. Not opposite. If it is created in this block, it is not going to be accessed outside of that block. Let's have a look on this execution just so you can see that I'm not trolling. It is really possible to do this. Functions, just like variables, also have rules. A function in JavaScript is also considered an object, and because of that, it can access functions, or better, variables, next to him. That's why you can work with closures the way you do. Let me give you an example. I have here this function, which only says hello world. And then you have the greetings.language, which means you are basically giving an attribute, a property, to the greeting function. Can you actually access this? Oh yes, you can. Let me just show you these greetings. Okay. But if I put console.log greeting.language, you could see the browser recommending it actually got this attribute. And this could lead to a lot of unexpected behavior, a lot of errors and bugs. So don't do this. This is just to show you guys that you can add properties like an object for a function. And another really strange example would be saying that this function is going to be equal to my greeting. And this is basically going to then execute my function just as it would be to the greeting. And this is the concept that the closures use. If you say that this variable is equal to this function, if you call this variable, it is now a function. And more closure would be something like return the function that says console log goodbye. Goodbye. One says hello, the other says goodbye. If you do it like this, you are effectively going to say hello world, and then it is going to say goodbye. Because this way, you are going to execute the greeting, say hello to everyone, and then you are going to store this function in here. And then when you call this my function, it's going to say goodbye. Have a look. This is the principle behind closures. But there are still some problems. Can you guess what happens when the parent function stops executing? even after the function gets executed and finishes. Can you guess what happens to these hats here even after this function got executed? It obviously is preserved. It's both private and preserved, so it's kept alive. If you call for the handout hats 3 times, it's going to remove the green, blue and red hats. Then the 4th one is going to say, sorry, no more hats left. And this is just to explain to you guys, it doesn't matter the state of this variable here, it is always going to be preserved and be kept alive, and you can still access it, but you'll not be able to access it outside of this variable here, which got this. Now, let's get to the real world examples. In this first example, we want to have 2 buttons for a counter, one which is going to add and the other which is going to reset. Here, take a look in my HTML. A div with a number, it's going to start as 0, and then you are going to have the add and the reset. Let's check in my browser. Here we go. We don't even need this one now. So it is only going to add and reset. Only those 2 things. The add is pretty easy to do, right? Let's just get the IDs and all that stuff going. Const number is equals to document.querySelector number. Add button is going to be equals to the add. Reset is also going to be the reset. Now we got everything from the DOM, everything that you wanted. We are already going to create a closure, so we can upgrade the number with the button. We already know how to do a closure and how to do a counter closure, right guys? So let's make it. A function, parent function, is a counter, which is going to have a count equals to 0. Make sure that you put a data type, otherwise it is going to be global and don't have instances. Then you're going to have a function which is going to increment. The increment is only going to console.log, not console.log, we are going to return because we want to put it in the number. Return and the count plus plus. Then the only thing you need to do is return the increment. Don't execute it, just send it like this. Then create a variable. Const, what can this be? My counter, I don't have really a nice name to put it. Is equals to counter. And then you are going to say that the number, not the number, but add button dot add event listener. Every time we click, we want to have this increment, so we need to get to the my counter. This is going to return the incrementation, and I want the number dot text content equals to this. And this way, it's already incrementing currently. Now we just need to make the reset, which seems pretty easy, right guys?
Yeah, boy.
So for the reset, we are simply going to get to the reset button, also add an event listener, and by clicking, we want the text content of the number to be equals to 0. And this way, it's resetted, right guys? Let's have a look. Add, reset. Done. Add, reset. Add. Yes, of course guys. It's obvious that it is still working like that, because you can't really access the counter, and the counter doesn't get resetted. What you really need is the counter to get completely resetted. This way it is only going to reset the display. And for that, let's just create another function. Reset. And the only thing you need to do is returning the count and specifying the count that is already going to be equals to 0. Since you already have the increment and the reset, so 2 different functions, and you want to return both functions, you can put a comma and reset. No guys, don't trust in me in this one as well. To return 2 functions or more in a closure, you put here an object, and then each function being a property of this object. So with this you can call all of the functions you want, and the ones that you don't call are private, like a class would be. Then the really last thing you need to do is update your event listeners. In here it's not my counter anymore, it's my counter dot increment, and in here it's my counter dot reset parentheses. And if you try now, it still adds, but when it resets, it gets to the 1 again. You could do a little bit more things, like an initial value and making something, well, different. But it's really up to you guys. The most important thing in this example is about the returning of multiple functions with a closure. Keep this in mind. Never return the functions, return an object with all of the functions. And if you want to have a look on my counter, how JavaScript made it. JavaScript made the increment function a property and the reset a property, and then the 2 dots after it and the function itself. It's how it did. And if you want to learn everything you need to know about functions, including functions inside functions and anonymous functions, be sure to watch that video that's popping around there in your screen. In this next example, we'll be creating a shopping cart made easy with only closures. So let's get started. To make things more fun for the both of us, we are going to create here a function which is going to be shopping cart, which is the parent function. Now the let cart is equals to empty array. This cart should also be let, so it is going to lead to problems. Always put let or var, but put a type of variable. And then the only thing you need to do is create three functions. The function responsible for add item, then the function responsible to remove item, and now the function responsible to show. And now I want all of you guys to make these functions on your own. You can even do them in here, in the console of your browser. So pause the video and do it alone. If you can't, then just come check how it was done, but try to do it alone and then correct it with me. Basically, what you're going to do in the add item is receiving an item. And in the remove item, you are going to receive them as well, because if you don't receive anything, how can you actually add or remove something? This cart is only going to have the name of the product. We are not really going to receive objects, only strings. So you are going to first verify if the item exists and if the type of item is equals to string. Because if it is a string, it's good to go. And if it is a string, we are going to add it. So cart.push. You can make more verifications of is it already there, so just increment the quantity and all of that, but it's not really needed. No, we want to put the item, not a string. And now we just push the item and we are going to console log saying, bro, the item is there, it arrived. So the item was added successfully. I don't know if this is well written, but it doesn't matter, right guys? Now for the remove item, we are also going to verify if it is a string, because our product needs to be only the name, only the string. And then we are going to verify if the cart.index of item. This way you are going to find the first index of the item, and we need to store the index in somewhere. Then if the index is bigger than -1, we are going to remove it. So cart.splice the index, remove only one thing. This is the splice function. You should know it, how you do it. If you don't, there are videos in my channel, just check it out. And then let's just put an else condition and console.error item not found. And we are going to also make an error for these ones. Console.error invalid item. And we are going to make the same thing for this one. And now, the last function, which is the easiest one, is just to return the cart. If you want, you could make some, like a password or a verification, a validation, authentication, but you are just going to return it. It doesn't really matter. And then, to return all of those functions in a closure, how do you do it? With an object. So, add item, remove item, show, no, it's show, yes. Then, the shopping cart is already ready. We can already come here and say that const Diogo cart is equals to shopping cart. There we go. Now if I put in here Diogo cart.show, this way it is going to obviously work. And then we are also going to make add item. We are going to add 55, which is not a string. Invalid item. Even if you put an array or an object, it is not going to work. We need to put a string. Socks. There we go, socks. Then I want to add another socks. So I have one pair of socks because it's two socks, one sock and one sock for each foot. And then I can also add a pair of jeans. Okay, now I can again show my cart, socks, socks, jeans, but I only have two feet, so why would I want two pairs of socks? So I'm going to remove item and I'm going to remove the socks. Undefined. Why? We didn't have the message for the most common thing, which is it was deleted. The item was removed successfully. Well, my bad guys, my bad. It's always my bad, of course. It's not yours. Now let's remove the a jeans, remove item, and the jeans were removed successfully. Then you can put again Diogo cart dot show jeans only, because I put 2 jeans, I removed 1 jean, and then I only have 1 jean now. Another thing that's really nice about closures that I've already talked about is the instances. So this is my cart, the Diogo cart, but I can also create a cart for you, your cart. And you can also have the shopping cart. And then I can even come here and make something like your cart dot add item, and I'm going to put here some banana. But for me, I'm not going to put banana in mine, of course not. I'm going to put chicken breast because I need protein, you know, guys. So if we console log both of them, Diogo cart, my cart, don't steal my cart, dot show, I have the chicken breast. And now let's see what you have in your cart. You have a banana. You have a banana in your cart. There are a couple things people sometimes overlook when working with closures. In order for you to have nice closures, keep this in mind. Use closures to encapsulate and preserve data within a specific scope. What does that mean? You can create this function here in the global scope. It is completely fine. However, if you want to create these instances, which is the Diogo cart equals to shopping cart and the your cart equals to shopping cart, you probably shouldn't do it in the global scope, because this should only be in the menu in which you call a function to create something and then it finishes executing and this gets moved somewhere, because otherwise it is going to keep wasting memory the whole program. Keep consuming memory, always there and not being removed. And this leads to a second problem. Be mindful of potential memory leaks when using closures, because as you could see, they keep the variables alive longer than necessary. So one thing you could do is basically, I don't want to use Diogo anymore. I want to keep in the global scope, but I don't want to use it anymore. So delete. And it got deleted. It doesn't even exist anymore. Or you could even assign the your cart to null to finish them earlier than normally. You should also try to avoid modifying variables outside of the closure scope, the function scope, to prevent unexpected behavior. As an example, imagine that I have here a state of the application. Var state equals to running. Imagine I have this, and inside of the closure I come here and say that the stating is now 0 or 90. This can break your problem 10 different times. Don't do it. If you need to receive the state just to check, is it running, so you can add item. If it is not running, if it is waiting, you cannot do anything. Okay. And then you put the state inside of here and make a verification. If state, and then if the state is running, right? If it's running, you do this. If not, do other thing. You can do something like this. You can verify something within parent tags, and you can also receive parent tags in here, either in the parent or the child functions. However, don't ever try to change the state. Don't change variables outside of where it should be. Alright guys, keep them there. And lastly, make sure to use appropriate names for your variables and functions. This way making your code better, simply better, more readable, clearer. People who want to read it can read it. If you want to debug or other people need to debug your code, they can understand what's there. And if you want, you can even comment it and create a document for what's written in each piece of code. And this, guys, is pretty much everything you need to know about closures and its uses in JavaScript. But now, if you want to dig deeper into functions, make sure to watch the video about functions inside functions explained easy. It's basically about higher order functions and callbacks. I think it would be beneficial for you to understand it. So just click on it. Yes, click on it. It's my previous video. It's not bad. And finally, thank you guys for watching this video until here. If you still have any doubts, leave a comment and I'll help you out.